Hello, once again, this is Jennifer McGuire, and I hope you're having a wonderful week. I've gotten lots of requests to do more alcohol ink videos, so today I'm back sharing how to create sparkly alcohol ink backgrounds. Now, truly, this is the easiest way to use alcohol inks. It's almost foolproof, and you'll see that in today's video. And you end up with a gorgeous shine that I've never been able to achieve any other way. I will first show you how to create these backgrounds and show you on two different types of paper. And then we will turn them into simple cards at the end. Now for most of my cards today, I used this new product from Tim Holtz. It's Silver Sparkle Alcohol Ink Cardstock. This is designed perfectly to go with alcohol ink. And it's a cardstock, so you can die cut it beautifully or even use an embossing folder on it. Now it has lots of sparkle, but there's no glitter on this. It's a printed process that gives it that shine and texture. And it is perfect for using with alcohol inks. Now I took two of the sheets and I cut them in half. The sheets are 5 by 7, so I have several pieces to work with. I'm using Tim Holtz alcohol ink and blending solution today. You could use your pearls if you want to, or your mixatives, but I find that using regular color works great since the paper itself has so much sparkle. If you are new to alcohol inks, I will link to a video here at the top right so you can check out the basics. Okay, so now we can add our color however we want onto the sparkle silver cardstock. I actually put down a little bit of blending solution first to help the color move. You'll see that right away the color moves a little bit, not as much as it does on Yupo paper. However, it does move more than it does on other glitter papers, so this is designed perfectly for alcohol inks. You can also use permanent markers on this if you want to. So after I put down a few drops of the alcohol ink right onto the silver cardstock, I put a little bit of blending solution onto my craft mat that I'm working on here. I then used a brush to help move the color around. Now you'll see this is absolutely forgiving. You don't get puddles of color, it just seems to spread beautifully. So when you're done, you get even smooth looking results. This isn't taking much time, I'm not putting much effort into it, and all I have to do after this is set it aside to dry or heat set it. I will say when you add the color, it will look dull at first. So right now there's not much sparkle on this. But once it's dry, the sparkle will come back and it'll be absolutely beautiful. I had a few spots that I thought were too light, so I went ahead and added a little extra color. That's another advantage of using this particular cardstock, is that you can reactivate the color and move it around more if you want to. Sorry I got my head in the way there. Sometimes I like to just blow on the surface to move the color. And here I'm using my heat gun to heat set it. So you'll see, watch, the sparkle is coming back to the paper. And check this out. It's got this fine sparkle to it with beautiful even color. Just love it. So let's do a few more examples. Here again, I'm using the same Silver Sparkle cardstock from Tim Holtz. I'm putting some lines of alcohol inks onto my cardstock and then using a brush with some blending solution to move it back and forth. I'm working on my Tim Holtz Tonic Matte. This is glass with the grid printed behind it. This is a perfect surface for doing alcohol inks because they clean up so easily. I also can put a little bit of the blending solution right onto my work surface to pick up with my brush. No need to have a little dish for that. Once I'm happy with the results, I can go ahead and heat set it and you can see the sparkle come back. If you're unhappy with the results, just put on more color or more blending solution, and you can keep going until you're happy. So in this one, I'm putting lots of blues and greens, put some blending solution on my mat, pick that up with my brush, and I'm just moving the color around. Again, I'm not putting much care into this. I just let the color move on its own, and check out how smooth it ends up being. Okay, so we'll do a few more examples here. Again, I find this to be easier to work on than traditional Yupo paper or alcohol cardstock because you don't see puddling happen as much. See those areas where there's a little bit of puddling? They're easy to separate. I think it might be the texture of the paper. allows you to kind of keep control of the color. I don't know what it is, but for some reason, I am really happy with the results that I get on this. And the fact that I end up with that sparkle when we're done really is a win for me. So let's take a closer look at all the pieces that I created. I do want to mention also that since this is a cardstock, this does not warp when you heat set it. So you don't have to worry about that. And as I mentioned, it die cuts beautifully and you can use embossing folders on it. Now I went for more blended backgrounds, but you could get backgrounds with high contrast by using different colors and not blending it as much. But I wanted subtle backgrounds of color that has lots of sparkle for the cards that I'm creating today. Now I created those backgrounds pretty quickly. I found that this is the fastest alcohol ink technique that I've ever done. And now I want to finish the cards off with a simple design and try to create them just as fast as I did the background. So I have stick-it double-sided adhesive sheets here, and I'm putting some white cardstock onto it. So basically what I'm creating is white cardstock with adhesive on one side. I like this particular adhesive because it's very thin. So once we have a layer of this on one side of our cardstock, we'll still be able to die cut it beautifully. After I put my paper onto the adhesive, I'm trimming off the excess and saving that remaining adhesive for other projects. Before I die cut this, I like to use my bone folder to really press it down to make sure that that adhesive is stuck to the cardstock. I'll be using 4 different dies today from Simon Says Stamp: the Poppy, Corner Dahlia, Dahlia, and Lotus Frame dies. I thought these window dies would be perfect to allow that sparkly alcohol ink background to show through. So I have put these into my Gemini Junior plates, and I'm going to take my cardstock with adhesive back and put the cardstock up against the dies. I'll then run this through my die cut machine, and any die cut machine would work. So now I have white die cuts with the adhesive already on the back. So I can go ahead and remove the extra pieces and the release paper from the back and place this right onto our sparkle background. I realized that these frames were the perfect size to get 2 from each of my backgrounds, so I'll be able to make 8 cards very quickly. Once you have your frame in place, this is very important. You want to rub your bone folder or something over the surface. Stick-it adhesive sticks best when it's pressed in place. So once I have that pressed in place, I can cut off the excess and do that for all of my backgrounds. So there you can see the different frames I created with the sparkly alcohol ink inside. Now before I add those frames to cards, I wanted to show you a different background that I created. I know people are wondering if you can use glitter cardstock for this, just any glitter cardstock that you may have on hand. So I grabbed some Simon Says Stamp glitter cardstock and I added alcohol inks. You can see right away the color doesn't really move on its own because there's a lot more texture to this. This has lots of glitter on the surface. It doesn't rub off, but it is much more sparkle to it. And you can see I need to use more blending solution to get the colors to move around more. So the colors end up being softer, even though I started with really vibrant colors. Now I can heat set this. I want to be careful because some glitter papers will warp. And here you can see the results are still quite beautiful. So you could use either with alcohol inks, but I do recommend the Silver Sparkle alcohol ink cardstock because their color moves so beautifully and the color shows up so nicely. But it's nice to have different options to use with your products. Okay, so let's start creating cards. I wanted to show you the sentiments that I used on most of my cards today. They're from the Simon Says Stamp Hello Darling stamp set. There are lots of fun large images on here, but if you look closely, there are wonderful sentiments. And I like sentiments like this that aren't basic because they're perfect on simple cards like the ones I'm making today. Now you may notice that my final note card size is a little narrow. It's the traditional 5.5 inches tall, but I made the card a little narrow to fit the proportions of having that frame and sentiment on it. Now don't be afraid to make smaller cards and put them in a regular envelope. Most of my envelopes today are colored envelopes from Simon Says Stamp. I really like their envelopes because most of them are self-sealing, and I can get a colored envelope that matches the inking that I did. That special touch of having a matching envelope makes this simple card stand out even more. Now behind each of my alcohol inked framed die cuts, I put a piece of craft foam. The reason I use craft foam behind that is to give some added dimension. You could use foam tape or foam squares if you want to, but I use craft foam so that it's one solid piece and this won't get crushed in the mail. I really like the details of these frame dies that I use. If you look closely, the frame itself has little cut details, so you can see like little zigzags or little marks on the edge. In the video I put up just previously, I showed how you can use the frames themselves on other cards, and I'll link to that on the top right in case you missed it. On all of my cards, I stamped the sentiment with black ink, but if you wanted to, you could also use silver embossing powder. So the cards I've shown you so far are 5.5 inches tall, and I would say about 3 3/4 inches wide. But I did make some that are even smaller. These are 4-bar size cards. I do about 3.5 inches by 5 inches, and you can get smaller envelopes to fit that size. I just thought it was another simple option for a quick card. On this one, I added a thinking of you sentiment from that Hello Darling stamp set that I showed you earlier. But on my next card, I use a sentiment from the Simon Says Stamp Tiny Words Encouragement stamp set. I used that a lot in my last video too, but I really wanted to use this sentiment that says, "In awe of you." I just thought that was such a nice sentiment and so unique, and perfect for a simple card like this one. And last but not least, we have the background that we created with the Simon Says Stamp glitter paper. On this one, I used a sentiment from that Simon Says Stamp Hello Darling stamp set that I showed you earlier. And I wanted to show you a comparison between the background that we created on this glitter paper, and on the left we have the silver sparkle alcohol ink cardstock. So you can see the results are quite different, and both options are fun. Okay, this might be my shortest video that I've done in a very long time. I hope you learned something new. If you're interested in the supplies, I do link them below my YouTube description. I have much more over my blog, including some interesting giveaways and such, so always be sure to check there. I have it linked here on the top right, and in the middle are a couple other alcohol ink videos for you. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you soon.